2-1. Okay. All right. So FDR, we have the 4 priorities, of which we've done 3 of them. Okay. So let's get the last one, which is housing, right? All right. So he's going to do something called the FHA, Federal Housing Administration. The FHA. And the goal of the FHA is to build houses for people. Okay. I mean, it seems pretty simple, right? They're going to build a whole bunch of houses. They're going to build a whole bunch of houses for people all around the country. It's going to work pretty well. They're going to build millions of houses. Okay. Here's the problem. And this is where it gets really problematic. The FHA increases racial inequality in the country because Black people aren't given the houses. The Federal Housing Authority does not give houses to African Americans. Federal Housing Administration. They don't give housing to the African Americans. Now, FDR himself was not racist. FDR himself was trying to fight racism. He had a bunch of a Black cabinet, is what they called it. These are like Black leaders of all the different programs. Mary McLeod Bethune was in charge of education for the whole country, right? New Deal education programs for the whole country. Like FDR was trying to fight racism. The problem is that FDR is going up against all the states and all the Southerners who are like working in the government and stuff, that once the FHA will have this big block of money at the federal level, they give money to, Utah, and then Utah goes and builds a bunch of houses, and gives money to Mississippi, gives money to California. Well, maybe California doesn't do it in a racist way, but Utah and Mississippi both do, right? The result here is that Black people get very few houses, almost zero, very few houses, okay? The next line that you need here that's really important is that this cements African-American poverty for decades to come. Decades and decades and decades, all the way till 2020. All the way to 2020, this cements African-American poverty across the country. It locks African-Americans into segregated neighborhoods. It locks them into segregated neighborhoods, and it locks them into bad schools, poor schools, which then locks them into lower jobs and takes away their wealth. It also makes it so that Black families don't have money to pass on to their kids when they die. Right? So if you think about this, right, my grandmother first moved to Salt Lake City when it was like 1950, and she bought a home in Sugar House, what is today Sugar House, right? And Sugar House is a pretty nice area of town, right? It's a pretty nice area. It's a pretty wealthy area of town, right? Houses are pretty expensive there. My grandma, when she bought her house there, it was just farmland. There was nothing there, right? And so she bought it for like $10,000. Well, when she died 6 years ago, my dad sold her house for $300,000, right? $300,000. And so she went from 10,000 to 300,000, and that money got passed on to her son, right? And when my dad dies, that money that he got from his mother, if it's still around, right? If he hasn't spent it all, right? If he invests it, I will get that money plus the money from his house, right? And my parents bought their house for like 100,000, and now it's worth like 300,000. You see what I'm saying, right? Most Americans don't own a lot of stocks, and most Americans don't have just a big pile of money, right? Most Americans, all they own is their house. And so their house is where all their wealth is. When I die, I will pass my house on to my daughter, right? And so my daughter will receive the money from my house, the money from my parents' house, the money from my grandmother's house. You can see how this adds up pretty quickly, right? If you invested in a house in a way that your house grew, you could see someone becoming a millionaire in just a couple of generations, right? By not letting African Americans buy homes in the 1930s, it means their kids don't have an inheritance, and their grandkids don't have an inheritance, and their great grandkids don't have an inheritance. you're basically locking them into poverty, which lasts all the way till today. This is one of the this is one of the largest reasons why African Americans in the United States today are poor, are poorer. Okay, it's one of the largest reasons. The next line down that I want you to put in is something called redlining. Redlining. This is how they did it. This is how they did it. Redlining is where banks take maps of a city and they draw red lines around the black neighborhoods, around the African American neighborhoods. Then they only sell to African Americans in the red line areas. So you'd have something where like red area is poor, yellow area is the next level up, blue area is the next level up, green area is the wealthy area, right? This one's Brooklyn, New York, this one's Oakland, California, right? And you would have these like this. And if you're a black family, even if you're a black family that's rich with money, the bank will only let you buy a house in those neighborhoods, in these neighborhoods. Even if you have enough money to buy the green area, the really nice area, they still won't give it to you. They'll make you buy an area in this area. Okay. The houses here are more expensive and they're also racialized. They're also racially limited. And this happens a lot. Okay. There's a senator, excuse me, there's a senator named Cory Booker. He's a senator from New Jersey, and he was running for president this last year. Barack Obama beat him in the Democratic primary. And Cory Booker is black. And he is a senator from New Jersey. And prior to that, he was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, right? And he grew up, his father had money, right? His parents did have money and they moved to New Jersey and they had money and they wanted to buy a house in the nice neighborhood. They had cash in hand, they had money, right? And the banks wouldn't let them buy. And so what he did is he found a white family from their church, and the white family went and talked to the banks and went and talked to the real estate agents. The white family went to the neighborhood. The white family said, we like this house. The white family used Cory Booker's dad's name, Michael Booker, right? And he said, yeah, I'm Michael Booker. So they signed all the paperwork as Michael Booker. And then on the very last day, Cory Booker's dad shows up to sign the paperwork, and he's black, and he's got a stack of cash, and he says, here's my money. The paperwork's already done in my name, and he takes the house. That's how Cory Booker grew up in a wealthy neighborhood. He grew up in a pretty wealthy neighborhood, which put him into a good school, which got him into a good college, which got him into a good law firm, which made him become prominent, and he became the mayor, and then he became the senator, right? Like, all of these things stem from the fact that his father just happened to have money and know a white person who was willing to help him. How many black people in the United States have money and know a white person who's willing to help them? Not a lot, right? We can't rely on that. So redlining is illegal. You can't do it, but they don't really make it illegal until the 1970s. So the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, it's still the practice. That means you're taking 10 or 40 years worth of people and you're stripping them of the ability to buy houses. It's pretty bad, right? And I want you to understand here, like, I don't want you to get all high and mighty thinking that Utah is some kind of better than the rest of the country at this, because we're not, right? Go and look around our valley and look at how segregated the Salt Lake Valley is, right? If I drive around Cottonwood Heights looking for brown people, I'm probably not going to find very many. But if I drive around West Valley, how long will it be till I find a Mexican? Like the second I'm in West Valley, basically, right? Salt Lake City is just as segregated as the rest of these cities. So I don't want you to think that Salt Lake is coming out better. Do we understand? Okay. So in the chat room, all three of you, real quick, give me a grade. What grade is FDR getting for this? Okay, Sam's giving him a C. Fernanda, Kelvin. Okay. Fernie's going with a D. How about you, Kelvin? Oh, Kelvin, you had D plus. All right.
Yeah, I did D plus.
Yeah, I just saw Fernandez first. Yeah, I would say probably a D plus or C minus. We all seem to be kind of on board, right? Let's respect for a moment. He did build houses for a lot of people, right? He did build houses for millions of people, right? It's just almost totally white people, right?
One thing, the reason why I gave him a C is because he did the best he could. He didn't try to implement these things with like the racism that like happened because of other people, but it still affected what he tried to do. So that's why I gave him a C and not like a D, because he did the best that he could. And what he did was on paper sounded really good. However, he didn't factor in what locals would do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think it's a fair assessment. I don't think it's fair to give him an F, right? He did build a lot of houses and he was trying. He was trying to fight the racism. In some parts of the New Deal, he did fight racism pretty well, but this is a part where he did not, and it really had major long-term problems. So I think you guys are right. It's a mixed record. I think this is mixed. All right, let's go to the next letter. Make our next letter, which is, I think, Q. Is that right? Fernanda says Q. Fernie says Q. I'm going with Fernie. How do you like Fernie?
It's fine.
All right. All right. Sammy, are you on Q too?
What's after T?
U. T-U.
I'm on U then.
U as in Utah.
Yeah, I'm on Utah then.
U as in Utah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so we'll go with U as in Utah. U stands for Lend-Lease. Lend-Lease. And I want you to title it Lend-Lease and the end of the Great Depression. Lend-Lease and the end of the Great Depression. Okay, so Roosevelt's been working on this for like 10 years now, almost, right? He's been working on this for almost 10 years. The Great Depression is still going on. He's had some success, right? Some success. He stabilized the banks, but and a lot of the job help was temporary, right? People would get jobs for a year and then go back into bankruptcy or back into unemployment. Houses are being built, but again, they're taking a long time, right? They don't. It just takes a long time. It's really hard. It's really hard to fix something as big as the U.S. economy. What's happening here? The Great Depression is going to end because of something called Lend-Lease, and it's related to war breaking out in Europe. World War II breaks out in Europe. Okay, World War II breaks out in Europe, and as World War II breaks out in Europe, we're going to get into this. We're going to start doing World War II stuff next week, right? But as World War II breaks out into Europe, the United States, FDR basically goes to the American people and he says, I'm going to try to keep us out of this war. I don't want to get into this war, but I don't think we're going to have a choice. He says, I think this war is coming for us, right? And the military agrees, right? And all the politicians kind of agree. And so the United States starts by first making weapons for our own Army and Navy. Okay, so we start making ships, planes, tanks, guns, bullets, that kind of stuff, right? We start making weapons. And this is slow. It's a slow process because we don't have a ton of weapons factories, right? We don't have a ton. And so it's a slow process kind of turning a car factory into a tank factory, right? And it takes a couple of years to get going, but this is creating a steady stream of things. Now, we don't trust Germany. Germany is being led by this crazy dude called Adolf Hitler, right? We don't know who this guy, we don't know anything about this guy, but we don't like him. He seems like a nut, right? He seems like he is a crazy, crazy, crazy dude who is really eager to murder his neighbors, right? So far, we're not on board with this guy. By 1941, Adolf Hitler attacks all of his neighbors, and he invades 9 countries in 30 days, including France. He invades all these countries in 30 days, and then he starts to bomb our best friend in Europe. Who's our best friend in Europe? What country is our best friend?
UK.
Yep. And France is our second best friend, right? Those are our 2 best friends in Europe, is the UK and France. And France is already gone. Germany already took them over, right? And now they're bombing UK, and the UK is asking us for help. The UK is like, oh my God, help us, help us, help us, right? And the US is like, no, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to get involved. We want to stay away. We want to stay away, right? Germany says, if we sell weapons to England, then that's an act of war and Germany's going to attack us. So we want to help our best friend. We can't sell them weapons. So what do? We lend them weapons, and we're going to lease it to them. What we say is, England, I'll lend you this weapon, and then at the end of the war, you can give it back to me, and you can pay a rental fee. I'm going to rent you a ship or a plane or a tank, or rent it for you. Now, what's really going on here, Kelvin? Are we actually going to be lending these weapons out?
No.
What's the problem, Kelvin?
It's technically the same thing, isn't it?
No, this isn't the same thing. We didn't sell it. We lent it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Why isn't this going to work out? Fernie, what do you think?
I think because they won't return it, right?
Why
don't
won't
know.
they return it?
I don't know.
They've been destroyed.
There we go. These things, it's not like borrowing your dad's Toyota, right? They're borrowing bullets and bombs and planes and tanks and ships, right? They're going to war. They're going to get destroyed. Can they give us back bullets that they used? That's not how bullets work, right? And so Germany is really, really angry, and we say, what? We're just lending it to them, right? And then England says, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to give you that plane back because the Germans shot it down. And we say, we're cool, bro. You're cool. Don't worry about it. The Lend-Lease program turns into a massive, massive government program where the United States is building tons and tons of stuff. A massive, massive program where the United States is building just tons of stuff. This is what ends the Great Depression. We turn about a quarter of all factories into war factories. And we are propping up England by giving them tons of stuff. Later on, we're going to do the same thing with the Soviet Union. We're going to do the same thing with the Soviet Union. We're just going to give them tons and tons and tons of tanks and planes and guns and bullets and everything. Right? We are going to end up providing somewhere around 80% of all the weapons for the war, for the Allied war. About 80%, 80. It's quite a bit. We're going to end up providing a lot of this stuff. And it's all American factories building it. This is what ends the Great Depression. Okay? All right, so now we're looking at this, and the war is coming on, but we need to understand who's involved in this war. Okay? So go to a fresh page on your notes and turn your notebook sideways so that the holes are on the top. Okay? Up by the holes, call this World War II political ideologies. World War II political ideologies.
Is this a new letter?
Yeah, we can make this a new letter. TUV, right? V.
V.
V for Veenstra. There we go. All right. and you're going to call it World War II political ideologies. Now you're going to draw a line across the center of your page. You're going to draw a line across the center of your page and then put a dotted line perpendicular going through the middle. Right, so you should have like a big cross in your paper.
What was that? Can you say that again?
You're going to draw a big line right through the middle of the paper, and then you're going to put a dotted line going vertically in the middle crossing, right? So it's going to look like a big cross in your paper. Got it? Okay. On this side over here, put the extreme right, extremely conservative. And then I want you to write the word fascist. Fascist. I'll spell it in the chat room for you. Fascist. F-A-S-C-I-S-T. Fascist. Okay. On the far left, write the extreme left, extremely liberal, and you're going to put communist. Okay. Now, on the right side of our dotted line, you could put it up on the top here. You can write conservative and liberal. Conservative and liberal. Conservative on the right side, liberal on the left side. So let's try something out. When you guys give me a thumbs up when you have all that written down. We're good? Okay. All right. So let's try something. You're going to give me a 1 or a 2 based on what your answer is. 1 or a 2. Okay. You are going to go on a hot date with somebody that you're really interested in, right? And that person has said, you pick the restaurant, you pick it, right? Are you going to go, 1, to the restaurant that you know you like, you go there all the time, you know that they have the food you like, you're comfortable with this restaurant? Or are you going to go to 2, the new restaurant that everyone tells you is really good? Both restaurants are the same cost, and your date says both sound good to them. Are you going to go 1, the same restaurant that you know and you're comfortable with, or 2, the new restaurant that sounds really good, but you haven't been there yet? What are you going to give me, a 1 or a 2? You guys are all going to the same restaurant. Okay. All right. Now you're doing chores at home. You're doing chores at home. You're listening to the headphones on your phone, right? And you're listening to music. Are you going to, 1, listen to the same music you listen to a lot, right? The same album, one of your favorite albums that you know you like, or 2, listen to that new album that your friends have been telling you about and that you think is going to be really cool? Give me a 1 or a 2. Oh, interesting. All right. How about dogs or cats? Okay, okay, okay. All right. Under liberal and conservative on your notes, what I want you to write is liberals, generally speaking, embrace change. They embrace change. Liberals like change. Underneath here, conservatives, generally speaking, don't like change. Conservatives generally avoid change. So liberals embrace change and conservatives avoid change. That, you guys all gave me a conservative answers for your things, which means that you guys probably have relatively conservative leanings on a lot of your political ideas. As we start delving into lots and lots of ideas, you're going to find that people are going to be, about half the country is conservative and about half the country is liberal. About half the planet is conservative, about half the planet is liberal. And most people are going to be like 60-40, right? Everybody likes change sometimes, and everybody likes comfortable things sometimes, right? Sometimes everybody likes it sometimes. Nobody is like 90-10, right? I always like things to change and I never like it. You know, nobody's 90-10. Everybody's like 60-40, basically, right? So you guys are all like 60% conservative, 40% liberal, according to the way you're answering the questions, right? And the one thing I need to point out here is whenever we're talking about this kind of stuff, individuals can do whatever they want, right? Individuals can do whatever they want. I'm pretty liberal, but I still like dogs, right? I still prefer dogs to cats, right? Individuals, liberals, you can do whatever you want. Anyone can pick what you want, right? I'm pretty liberal, but I also like to go to the same restaurant pretty regularly. You know what I mean? Like, so it just depends. All right. Every country is going to fall along this line somewhere. Right smack dab in the middle, we got Canada. Canada is just about the most 50-50 country on the planet, right? Go ahead and put Canada in there. It's about the most 50-50 country in the planet, Canada.
I thought Canada wasn't real.
My cousin who lives in Canada would be very upset to find out his country's not real. All right, so Canada's about the 50-50. Just right of Canada, you can put the United States and the UK. We're like a center-right country. We tend to be a little bit conservative, but not much. The United States, the UK. Underneath that, you can also put Germany, Japan, Australia. Germany, Japan, Australia, United States, and UK. We're all in this central right over here. Okay. On the left side, let's put France and Mexico. France and Mexico. We can add some other ones in here. This is also where Brazil goes. Brazil. This is also where India goes. Brazil, India, Netherlands, Sweden. Okay. Around those countries that we just listed, make an oval like this, draw the circle around those countries, and we're going to put zone of democracy. Countries that are democracies means that people are voting for who's in power, right? We elect officials, and then those officials rule the country and they write laws for us and stuff, right? That zone of democracy, democracies are always going to produce countries towards the middle. If your country is really a democracy, your country is going to hang out right towards the middle. Okay? We, the United States, we just had our election. How close was our election? Sam, how close was the election?
Quite close.
Very close, right? Biden won the election by only a couple of states, and in those states he won Nevada by like 1,300 people. He won Georgia by 900 people. He won Michigan by like 2,000, 3,000 people, right? That's like razor thin margins, okay? The United States is basically a 50-50 country. Every election, it's like a coin toss who's going to win, basically, right? Okay, the United States, we hang out in this zone here. Sometimes we elect Obama, who's over here. Sometimes we elect Trump, who's over here. Sometimes we go back to Biden, who's over here, right? Biden over here, Trump over here, Obama over here, Bush over here, Clinton over here, Bush over here. See what I'm saying, right? Like we're always kind of swinging back and forth between these, and our center is about right here. You guys with me on this? All right. If conservatives generally avoid change and liberals generally embrace change, then what are they going to think about some of these things? What is a conservative going to think about the past? Fernie, what is a conservative going to think about the past?
Are
Are they going to?
Don't know. They're just gonna live.
Okay,
Sorry,
let me rephrase this for you. Okay, I'm going to give you two statements, and you're going to tell me which one is the conservative statement. Okay, A, American history is filled with a bunch of bad stuff that's happened, racism and genocide, and we need to do what we can to fix it. Or B, American history is filled with a bunch of good stuff, like spreading freedom for a lot of people and growing of businesses and growing of liberty. Now, both statements are true, right? Both statements are true.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is the conservative statement and which one's the liberal statement? The first or the second?
The second one is the conservative, and the first one is the liberal.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Liberals are generally going to think that the past is filled with bad stuff that needs to be changed. And conservatives are generally going to say that the past is filled with good stuff that needs to be preserved. Right? They're both right. The past does have bad stuff that needs to be changed, and it has good stuff that needs to be preserved. Right? But what you're going to see is on all of these kinds of issues, conservatives and liberals are going to kind of fall into that. Now we're running out of time, so I want to fill this in really quickly. Go to our extreme right. Our extreme right, we have Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany, that's our historical example. Nazi Germany. The modern day example is ISIS. ISIS, that's the terrorist organization that controls Syria, controls a big section of Syria, right? These are extreme, okay? On this extreme side, I want you to put death camps. You could circle them and put death camps, mass murder, no freedom. Death camps, mass murder, no freedom. Those are the far extreme. Moving inwards a little bit, outside of democracy, but not quite extreme, is Saudi Arabia. That's where Saudi Arabia goes. That's also where Iran goes. Saudi Arabia and Iran, they're both in that zone. Okay, all right, go to the far left. The historical example we have here is the Soviet Union, the USSR. USSR, Soviet Union. The modern day example is North Korea. This is the with this red star down here, North Korea. Okay, you'll circle these ones and you're going to put death camps, mass murder, death camps, mass murder, no freedom. Death camps, mass murder, no freedom. Now, you guys probably notice, oh, and then in the middle here, so like not in the extreme, but also not democracy, you can put China. This is where China goes. And then you can also put China and Cuba and Venezuela. Yeah, I'll go here. China, Cuba, and Venezuela. All right, now you may notice here, the extreme left and the extreme right are very, very similar. They're both running death camps. They're both murdering people. They're both having no freedom. Okay, in a lot of ways, we portray this as a line, but what we should be looking at is more of like a horseshoe, where the extreme ends is where everyone's being murdered, right? On the extreme ends, everyone's being murdered. Either you're over here and you're getting murdered because you're not traditional enough, or over here, you're getting murdered because you're too traditional. Either way, you're getting murdered, right? These guys kill Jewish people because Jewish people are holding on to their Jewish traditions. And over here, these guys are killing Jewish people because Jewish traditions aren't in line with Germany. Either way, they're both killing Jews, right? This is one of the things I need to point out to students here is that the extreme, once you get to that extreme, it's basically just violence, right? That extreme end is just murder town, right? And if you're at a situation where they've arrested you, they've taken your house away, they've raped your wife and murdered your son, right? And they've knocked your teeth out and they have a gun to your head and they're about to murder you. Do you really care what's on their name tag? Does it really matter to you that they're killing you because you're too traditional or not traditional enough? No, because either way you're being murdered. Either way you got rounded into a death camp, either way you're getting murdered. Okay? These extremes are where that happens, in both these cases. And in a lot of cases, they're killing the same people. These guys are killing college professors. These guys are killing college professors. Right? These guys are killing gay people. These guys are killing gay people. Right? You're just killing whatever group you don't like. Okay? Do you guys understand what we're going with? So next week we're going to be going into World War II, and then we'll finish World War II after the break. All right? If we're good to go, then your guys are good to go. I'm going to let my seniors in unless you have a question.